I don't know if you see that same button or not.
Nope, I do not.
So we are live. Well, hello, whoever just came on board. Make sure to say hello in the comments so that we know you're here and who's here. I see Lauren has already been here. She left a comment back at 6:21. So she's been waiting for us to get here.
I don't know what she was watching. Hi, Morgan.
Hey, Morgan. Hello, Nara. How do you pronounce that? Is it Nara?
Or Nara.
Or Nara from Houston? Hey, James. How are you doing?
Yay.
We're up to 10 people now.
Are you? Neat.
Yeah. Short A like Nara. Okay, yeah. So Nara.
Pretty.
Thank you for joining us, Nara.
Very pretty.
How do you know Lauren and... Hey, Manny. How are you doing? So we can talk about what we're drinking right now.
You might have to introduce me once.
Oh, okay. It's but you're the young lady, as Manny said.
I know, right? I like that. You can just call me young lady. I don't get called young lady anymore. I will take it.
Steve's here now too.
Who is?
So, oh, okay, Nara. Then I actually know you since. No, I guess maybe not. Well, thank you for joining us. My name's Ron. I'm with Collected here in Fort Worth. And this is Marita Beth joining me. And we're about to bring Steve Gursky on as well. Hey, Steve, how are you doing?
Good to be here again.
It's good for you to be here again.
Of course, I just finished a client, so I'll be running out to the bathroom and grabbing my liquor. But I'll stick around for a few minutes and then be back.
Well, we were just, Marita Beth and I were about to explain what we were drinking and why. So if you want to take this time to go take care of your stuff, you can, and then...
Absolutely. See you in a few moments.
All righty. Okay, Marita Beth, do you want to go first?
I can go first. I'm drinking, I'll put it on the side of me where there's more space. I'm drinking 40 Creek. 40 Creek is my favorite Canadian whiskey. And I always feel the need to apologize to all my people that know I'm into Irish whiskey. I'm not actually cheating on Irish whiskey. This is a really nice Canadian whiskey. And other nights, there'll be Irish in my glass. But tonight, it's this one. I was inspired, I guess, by the fact that it's not American and we're reading a story that takes place in who knows where in some far off Pacific place. And I realized Canada's not in the Pacific, but at least it's not the USA either. So that's why I went.
But we'll get there a little bit later. Canada was one of the countries that did recognize the island as a sovereign nation. So
that's right. And there you go.
So I am drinking Balcones Rumble. And I'm drinking it because it's the X Factor. It's not really a whiskey. It's a Texas wildflower honey, turbinado sugar, and mission fig spirit. So,
wow.
Yeah, and it is absolutely wonderful.
Wow. Okay.
It's actually aged in whiskey barrels, and the whole process is done as a whiskey. But it's kind of like an amalgamation of all of these different flavors.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like Balcones. So
What was the name of that again, Ron?
it's called Balcones Rumble. It's made here in Texas.
Cool. I will look for that. Marita Beth, are you drinking wine again?
No, I'm drinking 40 Creek Canadian whiskey.
All right. And I have been experimenting with a lot of ryes and whiskeys. So I turned up, I didn't know that they made it. Jack Daniels actually makes a rye.
Cool.
And it's nice and tasty. It doesn't have the harsh bite of a normal Jack Daniels. And I'm starting.
I just had a pig and whistle piggyback rye earlier this week. One of my customers bought me a bottle of that.
Isn't that from
really
Pennsylvania?
good. Pardon me?
Isn't that from Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it was really good. It was a 6-year aged rye whiskey that has a really good flavor.
Nice.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Oops.
Last time we drank so much, I have my Rory Root coffee mug also to help with the work.
So you get to alternate.
I get to alternate.
Ah, pshaw. That's for other days of the week.
Well, we have 15 people on here. For those that haven't introduced yourself, if you will type in the comments and introduce yourself. We have Nara from Houston. We have Manny and James from Fort Worth. Geeky is from the Colony, which is right outside of Fort Worth, right outside of Dallas. But yeah. I'm about to go deliver his books to him tomorrow.
Nice.
What is the status out by you? Are you still curbside?
No, we're allowed to be open. We're at, I'll have to check. We were at 25%. I think that the governor said we can be at 50% now. Yeah. But for people that are compromised and cannot get out and it's not safe for them, I still do deliveries for them.
Good for you.
That's awesome.
All right. Matt's here from North Richmond Hills. He shops with our Keller store.
Yay.
Jim is here.
Oh, that's my Jim. Jim is an old-time customer of mine when I had the Delran store. Marita Beth was at that store.
I was.
I had it. And Jim has been a friend now for, I guess, close to 30 years.
Wow, neat.
Yeah.
So, Steve, how many stores did you have total?
At our peak, we had 7 stores and a warehouse.
And all through
me, Steve's Commerce Relief.
No, I mean, there were some in Jersey, and right?
Right. There were 3 states, Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. Yep. My pal Jim Hanley, when I was going into partnership with somebody in the ANS Mall that he had just moved out of, said, Gursky, anything you want. And then immediately opened up in Edison, New Jersey, where I had a store. We're still great pals.
You know, and that part of the business hasn't changed at all.
I always, before I opened up in what I considered someone else's territory, which was usually within a 3 to 5 mile radius in those days, I would go in, introduce myself. If they can convince me that there wasn't enough business for both of us, I had no problem.
Yep.
But if they got nasty, then, let's go in.
Yep. That's the way we did when we opened Collected, was we went to every store in Dallas and Fort Worth and introduced ourselves. Of course, we knew most of them. But, and said, hey, we're planning on opening up, and we're planning on opening up a lot of stores. And so we got up to 7 stores at one point and decided that's a lot of work. And now we have two.
Okay.
And that's much easier.
You're right.
And the same amount of money. You know.
Well, that multiple store thing, see, would have been easier. It was easier back in the day when you had me, but without me.
Yes. I am the first to admit that. I am the very first to admit that.
Well, if I had been able to figure out a way to keep Vince Laterio, and he and I were having our battles in those days anyway, so when DC came a knocking, it was fortuitous because it gave me some additional cred in the industry, and Vince is still there.
Yeah, he is.
Yep.
So it's important to have good second hands that can run the ship, because I was never able to.
Have you talked to Vince lately?
I have not. Probably chatted a little bit about a year and a half ago.
Okay. I was hoping for some insight as to what the hell DC's doing right now.
Yeah, I've reached out to a couple of people too, but I've heard crickets.
Yeah.
And in their corporate environment, I would expect that to be the case.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I know that it's AT&T calling all the shots, not DC. But
yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get started over on Marvel then. So tonight we chose to talk about the X-Men, and we chose a starting point of God Love, Man Kills. Yep.
I couldn't find my original. It's somewhere here.
And we chose that because that was, Steve suggested it, and then I jumped right on it because that was to me, the epitome of what the X-Men were, and always being the oppressed, just trying to fight for their rights in this country. And then we're going to follow it up to Dawn of X right now, which is written by Jonathan Hickman. And God Love, Man Kills was written by Chris Claremont with art by Brent Anderson. So we're going to go up to Dawn of X, which all of a sudden the mutants are a sovereign nation on a island called Krakoa. They have all of the rights and everything else that any other sovereign nation would have, and they have power now because they have plants that have grown on Krakoa that have eradicated almost every disease known to man.
Ooh.
And if a nation actually recognizes them as a nation, they get access to those drugs. And if a nation does not recognize them, they don't get access to those drugs.
Rob, 1 sec. Jim, I don't hate you, but stop being a schmuck. Go read it.
They are now at the pinnacle of the power structure. So it's going from being completely oppressed to being the ones that have all of the power to oppress regular mankind. And there's actually a scene in X-Men #4 where Magneto, Professor X, and Apocalypse all go to Davos for the World Economic Forum. And if you can imagine Apocalypse dressed in a 3-piece suit, that was just wonderful. And they go there and basically say, you don't dictate to us anymore, we dictate to you. And so that's a long process that they've gone through. So let's start with God Love, Man Kills. Oh, geeky. So yes, the island Krakoa, where all of the mutants are right now, is actually a mutant itself.
I did not know that. I'm new to all this, right? I was never an X-Men fan.
Yeah. And Steve, since you have not read the new one yet, Moira McTaggart, is a mutant.
Okay.
And she has died and resurrected
Yeah, but you're on
Nine.
Jean
you're
Grey.
on the next book now.
Huh?
That's the next book. That's not in God Loves Man Kills.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. I'll talk about that later. Yeah. So God Love Man Kills.
One quick anecdote about that book, which again I thought was just tremendous when I first read it. The character, I think it's Senator Robert Kelly.
Yep.
The visual of that character is based upon Robert Culp, who played Kelly Robinson in the TV series I Spy with Bill Cosby.
Huh.
Wow. Well, I'm going to throw in there the fact that, again, not an X-Men reader for the most part. Very inexperienced at it, actually. It took me a while to warm up to this story. And I understood that I was enjoying the story, but I was not enjoying its telling. And I'll tell you what made me feel better about it was deciding about halfway through the book to read the interview in the back with the artist, where he very plainly tells us that this should have been a 90-page book, not a 60-page book.
Yes.
And when I realized that, I was like, oh, okay. So all of those plot holes I feel like I'm seeing, they're really there. And all of those problems where the story feels rushed and strange, those are really problems. It's not just me. So once I got past that and I realized, okay, just pay more attention to the story. Ronnie and I talked about it, and he said, this is a story where the words are more important than the pictures. And I had already figured that out, but once I really focused on that and I had the artist's comments in my head, it made the second half of it much easier. And I loved it. It's a great story. It's a really fabulous, prescient sort of story, and important for us these days, I think. But I think it's real. I would love to see the 90-page version. I would love for this artist to have a chance to go back and do this the way he wanted it to be in the first place.
Well, it's funny, and I promise you guys that Marita Beth and I did not set this up. But it's funny that you should say that, because Marvel is coming out with, as a floppy, and I'm sure they'll collect it later, but they're coming out with God Loves Man Kills, the director's cut.
Really?
And
Oh my gosh.
So
that's cool. That's cool.
Just the brilliance that is Marita Beth.
Yes, that's
what did you say?
Demonstrates the brilliance that is Marita Beth.
Marita Beth asked for something, and Marvel already has it on their publishing schedule. That's just
that's awesome.
But yes, they are doing a director's cut of this. So it's going to be very interesting. It won't be redrawing it, but I'm hoping that it's going to have the full script in it. And it will have, commentary by Chris as a lot of that.
Well, it was his first X-Men book. And they did some really experimental stuff. There's some really neat effects, if you will, where they would paint the background and then put the drawn action on top of it. And there's some really interesting pages. And I just wanted more of it. I wanted more visual to go with the story. And I think it's a fabulous story. I think they did it a disservice by trying to keep it at 63 pages or whatever.
It was their new format, and they wanted a big title to release, and X-Men were popular.
You have someone asking when that director's cut comes out.
The director's cut will come out, I think the first one comes out in August.
Huh.
And Nora, if I thought I had that kind of power, I would absolutely request Firefly seasons 2 through 3. I got you. I got you there. If I find out that I'm actually a mutant with this superpower, I will absolutely place that request.
But it has to be with Joss Whedon.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, the story behind God Love Man Kills is what they tried to do with the second X-Men movie. I believe it was the second one, which they didn't do it justice in the movie either. Huh?
Yeah, I think that's the one with Senator Kelly in it, right?
Yeah.
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 So, Steve, you want to go ahead and go through?
Get that on silence.
That's okay. Everything okay?
Sorry, was so rudely interrupted.
Do you want to go through a quick synopsis of God Love Man Kills?
Oh, I hope I can do it justice. It's been years since I've read it. The basic thing is, I believe Trask is also involved in this,
Yep.
and he works with Kelly to outlaw the X-Men, to say that they are a menace to society, that mutant lives don't matter. And we get played out very much what we're seeing in the public eye now, a political direction for the company, which says that one part of our community, in this case the mutant community, are bad, they're harmful to the rest of us, and they need to have restraints put on them.
And they actually use quotes from the Bible to support.
I was going to say it's very religiously driven.
Yes, they use quotes from the Bible to support the dehumanization of a group of people, which is, exactly what our forefathers did.
Yep.
And then Trask and Kelly at some point had the unnamed muscle men around them shoot tear gas and pellets and cleared out the way so that they could walk to the church with the Bible upside down. I think I'm confusing.
It's really familiar, but I don't think it was in this comic book.
Yeah. I don't think that one was in.
But the storytelling and Claremont in those days was incredible. May still be. I don't read as much, but Brent Anderson to me is what made that book.
Yeah.
And so hearing for you, Marita Beth, that you felt vindicated in a way by Brent saying, "Hey, there were 30 more pages for me to draw.
I wanted to do more." Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting. I just loved the way he drew the characters. I loved his panel organization to move the eye to where the eye needed to be. And I felt that the emotion was equally balanced between visual and writing. But I was an X-Men reader at the time. So all the backstory was there for me.
Yeah. And that's probably my biggest problem is that I didn't feel, there were times when when I was looking at a panel and I'd be like, who is that supposed to be? Her hair was longer in the last picture. How am I supposed to recognize her as the same person if he doesn't draw her hair the same every time? Right. So there were little things like that I was really frustrated with. But again, in looking through his notes, some of the pages were done at 200% and some of them were done at 150%.
Oh.
So there are some pages in the book that just don't translate as well because they're muddier. They didn't. Yeah. There was too much change from the original to the actual, and they didn't always translate as well.
I remember some of that modeled feel to it.
Yeah.
I looked at that book as almost like a chapter book, where it was the expository carried the story, and the art was the background. And I think one of Brent's strengths is drawing reality. I mean, his people look real. His buildings, his cityscapes, everything looks real. The X-Men were not over heroic, over muscled, over everything was realistic, and I think that's his biggest strength. That's why I loved Astro City so much.
Yeah,
was his artwork.
And again, if you go back to Somerset Homes, which if you can find it, I highly recommend it. There are no words. Okay, this is strictly driven by the visual, and the only words you really have are placards or signs in the visual.
Yeah.
So he's very strong at telling us what the mood should be. He's very strong at eliciting feelings. And in this case, you and Marita Beth are correct, I think, that the words needed to tell even more than the art was able to because of the allocation of the amount of pages.
Yeah. So what was to me, like I said, this story is what Stan always tried to do with the X-Men. And the way that the public is easily swayed, with the right combination of power figures through religion and government to totally dehumanize. I mean, there's no other way to say it, and of course they are, so theoretically they're, not humans, but that was the analogy that they were shooting for, and it was
and the process of slavery is dehumanization, and that's where they were going, to make the mutants either enslaved or eradicated.
Yeah.
I just opened the book to one of my favorite pages visually. So I've already said the story was, for me, is the star, not the art, right? So if I'm going to pick a page spread from this artist that I totally love just looking at it, I'm just gonna, I can do that, right? You don't care? All right. So here's this. Does that
Up a little bit more.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I love how there's different shapes of panels. See the circle in the corner? And I love this great big splash panel that's painted. It's like, where's my camera? Hello, camera. Like this, the fire and the background of this is painted, and then the other action is like on top of that. It's
right. It sets it off.
It's very cool. It's very cool. And some of the panels are like on top of each other, and it's just really neat. It's visually a beautiful page spread. Page 22 for any of you who are following along at home. Is that a smoke detector in your world?
I'm trying to figure out, is it?
Yes. And I have not yet figured out how to bring anything stable enough in here to climb onto to take it off.
Okay, I've been looking for it at my house.
It's called a ladder, Steve. It's called a ladder.
Yeah, I know.
At the home improvement stores.
Yes. I just need somebody to go there for me because I'm now working 60, 70 hours a week. The demand for therapy, believe it or not, has improved.
Yes, I'll bet it has.
Increased, rather.
I'll bet it has.
Yeah.
How often do you prescribe comic books?
Almost every day.
Yay! That makes me so happy.
Both for literacy and for sanity.
Yep.
Also for human interest.
Yep.
I think I've told this story before, maybe the last time we were together. I had my beliefs on racism codified by Sergeant Fury #6, which is where a racist is brought into this close-knit group of international warriors, and he's a bigot. And in the final stages, after he's alienated everybody, he gets hit, I think, by a grenade or is shot, and either Izzy Jones, I think Gabe, the black man, went to rescue him and pull him back. And when he wakes up, Izzy, the Jewish man, is there giving him the blood transfusion. And comics are tremendous.
Yeah.
I always thought that they did both Marvel and DC with Sergeant Rock and Easy Company,
Yeah.
and Marvel with Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos. They put together those squads.
Yeah.
They were to have done that story now, people would be yelling and screaming about how they were all, on purpose and everything. But back then it was natural. Nobody, that's, that's the way, but they did do it on purpose.
Well, this is just me, but it saddens me that you have to take Gone with the Wind off the air until you can put together something that explains it. It's a period piece.
Yeah, I read that.
That's
Yeah,
the way
exactly.
it was then.
Yeah.
It should be. It should continue to be the way it was. Let's not hide our warts. Let's get them out in public so that we can see them, deal with them, and go, "Wow, we've come a long way."
If only we have.
Well, we had, and then we backtracked.
Well, okay. I talk about that for hours.
So
we're here for comics. Right, he is a comic. Oh, never mind.
So throughout the God Love Man Kills, another one of my favorite things is we have Kitty Pryde, who is a very young new member of the X-Men, and she is the one that we pretty much see the story through her eyes, because she's the one that escapes originally and has to try to come back to rescue all of the heavy hitters that were taken by Trask.
Yeah.
The Jewish mutant.
Yes.
Not that Chris liked to hammer the point home at all.
But once again, looking at that team, it was very, the new X-Men, with the Canadian and an African and
Russian,
a German Catholic, and an American Jewish. It was, and they all worked together, and they didn't beat us over the head with it.
Right.
And we got to see how it should be with everybody working together. But yeah, it was fun for me for her to be she wasn't the main character by far, but we got to see so much of it through the inexperienced eyes, and seeing her realizing that this is the way the world really is, because she had come from what would be a privileged background.
Right.
And then finding out that it's, everybody is out to get you. So that was the X-Men for a long period of time. Has anybody else in the audience read God Love Man Kills?
Did our people that lost their audio get it back?
Yeah, most of the time, if they lose their audio, all they have to do is exit out and come back in.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Jim Barry, did you get a chance to run out and read it yet? I know Magneto was your favorite, but come on, get on the stick.
Oh.
And just as whoever just said this, you come across as Facebook user,
Right.
in the future, if you can just you didn't get your audio back.
Did.
Oh, you did. Okay.
One of them did. The other one.
If you could let us know who you are, and then next time you log on, there should be a thing asking you to give StreamYard permission to identify you, so that we can see you as something other than Facebook user. So give us your impression of this book.
And while we're waiting for them to type.
Morgan and Lauren said they haven't read it yet. So I can see a couple of care packages that I will be sending out this week. So, that was Matt Martinez. Okay. Matt Martinez is the one that beat me at trivia last time on comic book trivia. Two times. I was pretty. I came back and I beat him the next week.
Martinez, or does he have another name?
Do what?
Is he still Matt Martinez, or does he have another name now?
No, he is Matt Martinez. Okay.
Where are you playing comic book trivia?
We do that on our Friday night show.
Oh, how fun!
Yeah, we there's a program where you can we create all the questions ahead of time, and you get on your phone, and then we read off the questions, and you answer on your phone, so it times it and knows who answers first.
Nice.
And the quicker you can answer, the more points you get, and things like that.
Very cool.
So I get to play against all the customers.
And somebody beat you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Congratulations, Matt.
So yeah, Brent makes all the questions, so I get to play as well.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Very fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was, and okay, so the book came out in 1982. So if you look at the time period of 82, that's when they were gaining so much power. They were that was the year I graduated.
kind of the very near the beginning of what became known as the moral majority.
Right. Yeah.
That was the year I opened my first store, and my daughter was born.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was not happening in the media a lot. In fact, there was that huge insurgence of Christian media or moral majority media for the first time, really. And the fact that this book makes no bones about having a more John Lennon-ish sort of outlook on things would have been very different. I mean, I wasn't reading this kind of comic in 1982. Was it controversial? Do you remember when it came out?
Oh yes,
very.
Okay.
Yeah, Marvel got all media. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, you know.
Ron, you were saying Marvel something?
Oh, I was just saying Marvel got all kinds of slaps from one end and accolades from the other. You know, it was that much. And it's amazing that a book that is almost 40 years old, not amazing, it's sad that a book that, is 40 years old is still relevant today.
That it was ahead of its time, so to speak.
Yeah.
Morgan points out that 1982 is not far from the whole people being afraid of anything remotely satanic. D&D was looked down upon by the Christians, and lots of what she's put in quotation marks, satanic panic. I had forgotten that phrase, but yeah.
No, Lauren, it is a thing that has always existed.
Yes and no, I would say, Steve, because now here we're not talking about comics, we're talking about
The
social.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
In comics,
while
yeah.
our country has a history of always having been somewhat religious based and puritanical in its outlook, the moral majority thing was it was that was like I said, it was new because
Base.
technology, media picked it
Yeah.
up. Like it was the thing that the Christians had multiples of their own networks and church
Right. The
services started
700 Club.
on television and all that kind of stuff. It was big. It was
And
big.
you're right. Jim and Tammy Baker.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's the guy recently that just made
Right.
news by going against Trump?
Yeah,
So
to give you context, the 700 Club started in 1980.
there it is. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. So yeah, it's all very similarly timed.
Well, nationally, they started on a local media in 1961, but they came to national prominence in 80.
Makes sense. That's around when World Wrestling Federation became nationally prominent. And after all, they're the same thing.
You know, wrestling, people always used to make fun of why there were wrestlers at comic book conventions.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, there's nothing else that's more similar. I mean, you have your obvious good guy against your obvious bad guy. You have turning heel, huh? You have costumes. You have colorful names.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And yes, you're
Yes.
correct, Lauren.
Well,
Correct.
that and George Bush saying "read my lips," but
Yeah.
um,
I really like the people who are expressing these comments right now.
yeah,
No, I
It's great.
and that's what I want this show to be. Where we talk about it and then we get feedback and we get
It's
and
the best part. It's the best part. And yes, the AIDS crisis. I was in college in the '80s, and the AIDS crisis was that was it. That was
Yeah.
you're you didn't not feel touched by that if you had friends in that community, in the gay community, and
Absolutely.
yeah, it was, and they were very much a judged segment of society
it's another
that could identify with the way the X-Men were treated. Very much so.
So you have a lot of minorities throughout time, but in the comics, and the comics were minority, although for a while during World War II and up until the 50s, 60s, I guess, comics were selling in the millions. And they've kind of become more niche, but they've always expressed where society was, and usually about 3 years, 5 years ahead of where society was in the present. So the artistic community, the writing community, yes. Yeah, Lauren, that's very good. Understanding of the Cuban Missile Crisis was largely colored by X-Men First Class. Yes.
Well, they didn't teach it well in the '70s and '80s when it wasn't that old. I'm sure they don't teach it well now. So, yeah.
Well, again, we'll see in about 20 years how it's taught. This era is taught.
Right.
I am hoping it's going to be taught as an era of great liberation, artistic creativity, and a sense of value where our morals are, that we are all brothers and sisters, and let's enjoy ourselves.
We will see what happens.
I just hope that it's not a memory test where you have to remember everything that happened in the year 2020.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So Kelly and my sister and I were talking earlier today about fires in Australia, and I was like, yeah, that was before Christmas. She's like, no, no, it was just a few months ago. It just feels like it's been years. Like everything is stretched right now. There's so much going on, and yet our lives are the same day in and day out because we don't leave our homes for the most part. That
Sure.
our perception of time and all the things going on is all twisted.
It's all, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Carlo, I think what we're going to find is that people are kind of burnt out on the Avengers for now. I mean, you've gone through Endgame. We're going to get a few things happening. But I do think that one of the next waves will be either Fantastic Four, which were a band of a family, which is a really great thing to promote now, or the X-Men, which is emblematic of our times. And so I think you're right. It would be really good to see some X-Men now and treated well in the media.
And I think Kevin Feige can do it.
I agree.
Kevin Feige, especially now that Ike Perlmutter no longer has control over him and that he reports directly to Disney and not through one of Trump's biggest supporters. Who did not want Carol Danvers, did not want Ms. Marvel to have Captain Marvel to be a movie because females can't have a lead role.
What?
Yeah, that's why it took so long to get Captain Marvel made, because Perlmutter kept on saying no. Yeah. So, but Feige threatened to quit Disney, and Disney said, no, you get to report directly to us anymore.
Good.
Wow. Okay.
So we've now had two major expressions of Marita Beth. The stunned look and the giggle. And that laugh is precious. So more of it is to come.
Yes.
I hope so. Yeah.
Especially as she has a little more whiskey.
Oh. L'chaim.
I am.
So, yeah, I'm with you there. It's going to be interesting to see which one they get to come out with first.
Yeah.
The Fantastic Four or the X-Men. Somehow I think that the X-Men will be the one, basically because, I don't know, they may want to give more time to let the old X-Men kind of bleed out of everybody's memory.
Mm-hmm.
The older movies, you mean?
Yeah, before bringing out the new ones. But
so, educate me, if you don't mind. Having, while I was in the comics industry, not been an X-Men fan, right?
Right.
So some of my first, not first, because obviously I knew who the characters were and I sold the books and I understood the basics. But as far as following a story, those first couple of X-Men movies are some of my main, that's my main knowledge, right? So I didn't realize until many years later, when I befriended a young man who sometimes calls me mom, that those movies are not loved by X-Men readers.
They were, part of the reason why they weren't is because they loosely based on the stories, but were not able to get the depth and the feeling that you got out of the comics reading it. So it kind of felt like a cheapening of the stories that they were retelling.
Okay.
That's the main reason they tried.
Yeah, I thought that the first one was the best, and that after that they were trying to go in too many directions at once and not being able to, really get their feet on the ground the way the X-Men did.
Yeah. And I agree with James. That may be why Fantastic Four comes out first, is because they still want to give people enough time to forget. You know, if you take, I Wolverine was done wonderfully. With the exception of Hugh Jackman is 6 foot tall instead of
Right.
5 foot tall. But you take that away,
Hugh Jackman.
and he nailed that character, though. I mean,
Maria Beth, come up to New York. We'll see Music Man together. Have a drink.
and I agree. 1 and 2, 3 was bad. I didn't mind First Class, and I never saw Apocalypse.
Yeah, and
I never saw Days of Future Past.
I actually liked First Class, and I'm told that it's like the. Anyway,
First Class I liked.
It was
like it. What, Steve?
In the comics, Future Past was a great story. Byrne and Claremont at their height.
Yeah.
Okay, but then it starts to get convoluted in the movies.
So this will be a pretty good segue into Dawn of X.
Oh, let me say one thing first. In talking about the Marvel movies, you've already had tastes of what the Fantastic Four may be like in them with the Skrulls. And so if you get the Fantastic Four ingrained, and then you start planting the seeds of the X-Men. And this is where Feige and his troop is best at. Planting the seeds of what will be there down the way.
Yeah, I'm going to go on record saying that I think that we're going to find out that the Black Widow that died in Endgame was actually a Skrull.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that the Black Widow is still alive. We're going to see her solo movie, which takes place in the past, of course. But
Yeah.
I think that we already know that the Skrull are on Earth and that they're taking people's identities. And we know that Scarlett Johansson is a moneymaker for Marvel, and
Yep.
she loves playing the character, and the fans love her playing the character. I think that, there's going to be a revelation. So that's my theory.
I like better than the one I heard, where she's plucked out of the time stream by Kang.
Yeah.
Although that would tie into Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Well, the Skrulls will too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. So, but talking about Days of Future Past, what we find out in Hox and Pox, which is our shortened term for House of 10, Power of 10, or House of X, Power of X, however you want to look at it. We find that Moira McTaggart is a mutant, and her mutant ability is to I just lost resurrection. Yes. So we find out that she has lived up to this point 9 lifetimes. One of those lifetimes was actually the one that ended in Days of Future Past.
Oh.
So every time she comes back, she remembers what happened in the previous lifetime. Yeah. And she's trying to get to the point where mutants can survive. The first couple of lifetimes, she didn't realize she was a mutant. She hated mutants. Mm-hmm. So she kind of wasted those lifetimes right away. And then when she finally realized what was going on, she started working with Professor X and everything. So, the first thing I'm going to say about what Jonathan Hickman has done here is this is the most genius bit of writing that has been done to automatically absorb everything from the past X-Men stories in, because it could be through one of, Moria's lifetimes, and give Marvel the opportunity to completely reboot if the storyline doesn't go the way they want it to.
Right.
So and I can imagine that was, part of the thing. It's like, hey, look, if it doesn't sell, she just dies and we start over again.
Great.
So what we do find is that we find out that she does have a limited number of resurrections that can happen. Mystique's lover is Destiny, and Destiny has told her, that was something that's happened since the Claremont run. Mystique and Destiny are a couple, and one of the lifetimes Destiny has died. So Mystique is pretty upset about that. And one of the, before I get too far ahead of myself, so what they've done is Moria has shown Professor X and Magneto everything she's seen, all the way up through Days of Future Past when the Sentinels kill them all off. How it always ends with the death of mutants in every time, because they always try to fight or integrate. So they make the decision that it's not about fighting to be a part of humanity, and it's not about integrating into humanity and being, equal but separate. So they've decided to totally remove themselves from humanity. And so the island Krakoa has given them a home. Every mutant is welcome on Krakoa, and they have planted. Krakoa has created all of these plants that do different things. One of them was the drugs that I talked about earlier that gave them the power. They also have a plant that is a gate, which, okay, both of y'all, Marvel can come up with some crazy POP stuff at times. This was absolutely one of the best I think they've ever done. They gave us plant seeds to give out to customers, and so that you could build that you could grow your own Krakoa gate. And it grew flowers, but we grew them in the store, and they grew well. But anyway, so they grew gates and put them in every country. And then, went out and said, okay, all mutants are welcome here. There are a couple of rules. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you can't see it.
I can.
Well, so
it's not great.
Yeah, but this outlines the different plants and what they do, but I can't get it to focus for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But that's a spread in this book.
Yeah. The one of the things that let's see, Lauren.
That's great.
What you're looking for, the more about the gateway thing, or
yeah, it would be. Yeah, well, no, I was just
right.
So
it would be a great movie.
The gates, and they plant them in every country, and they send out the word that Krakoa welcomes all mutants, and you have a nation here. They made all of the governments, or most of the governments. recognize them as a nation with all of the rights, that nations have. Some countries like Russia surround the gates with military and will not allow mutants to go through it. And so they have a offshoot from Krakoa called the Marauders, which is funny because the Marauders were a group of bad guys, and so that's the whole thing. On Krakoa, all mutants are welcome,
Right.
even those that were bad.
Mhm.
One of the actual rules on Krakoa, and to be a part of it, you have to agree with the rules, the laws. And one of the laws is you may kill no man. So they make it as part of their rules. So, and then everybody is put to work doing different things by whatever their powers are and things like that. Sabretooth goes off on a mission with some other people, and of course Sabretooth, being Sabretooth, kills him. And they banish him immediately to the bowels of the island where he cannot come back.
Oh.
So they do police their own. The other thing that's interesting is that they have grown plants and pods that allow mutants that have died to come back to life. Matthew, you do show up as yourself now. So they have kind of taken away the, on one end of it, I thought it was going to ruin the story because all of a sudden it doesn't matter about conflicts, because if you can always just come back, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
They have fixed that somewhat now. But one of the other interesting things, going back to one of my favorite mutants, which is Kitty Pryde, Krakoa will not allow her on the island. So nobody with
The island doesn't like her because the island is a character.
Yeah.
The island has a personality.
The island is a mutant. Yeah. So anybody without the mutant gene cannot get on the island. And all of a sudden, Kitty Pryde's not allowed on the island. The island just will not allow her. She can't go through any of the gates. So she can come to the island and be on the beach, but she can't go inside the island.
Interesting.
So so she becomes, and they've set up the council, which is the ruling council for this government of mutants, which Professor X, of course, is on there. Then you have Apocalypse, and then you have Mr. Sinister, and you have the White Queen. What?
Nothing. I'm not drinking.
You have the White Queen. You have the other fun part is that you have Jean Grey, Cyclops, but it's a mix of all of the big characters. And so they've set up almost like the Hellfire Club. So you have the Red Queen, the White Queen. So the White Queen has made Kate Pryde the Red Queen. And she lives on a boat now. And as part of the Marauders, it's her job to go get the mutants that aren't allowed to go through the gates.
Okay.
So she rescues those. You have all kinds of palace intrigue going, of course, because you have, Mr. Sinister and Apocalypse and everything. And the interesting part is at the end of Hawks and Pucks, Moria McTaggart is there, and she gives this talk at the very end, and she's drinking tea with Magneto and Professor X. Over a year has gone by. We have not seen her since. We have no idea where she is. But we're still in this timeline. and part of it is, okay, do we protect this timeline right now by protecting her, so that we can see where this timeline goes. But that's one of the other, things going on.
So for anybody who's listening along with us and hasn't heard my disclaimer and my apology, I didn't actually finish reading Hawks and Pox. So I'm loving it, which I didn't expect to, which is part of why I didn't finish it, because I procrastinated opening it. But I'm loving it.
And I haven't started it, but I'm loving it.
Yeah, I'm loving it. And it's beautiful. It is. There's something really missing for me if I don't love the art, which is why it took me time to get into the other one we talked about. So I'm loving the art.
Yeah, when this book came out, it was actually 2 different books, and it came out on a weekly basis. It was House of X and Power of X. And they didn't always alternate. It was like House of X, Power of X, House of X, Power of X, Power of X, House of X, and so the book that you're reading has them all in order. So R.B. Silva did the artwork on one of the books, and James is asking, how far along are you in Hawks and Pox?
Oh, don't make me tell. It makes me look irresponsible.
But I'm told
I'm less than 100 pages. Pardon?
I told I'm more irresponsible than you.
Yeah, I'm less than 100 pages in.
So,
but
so both of the artists are 2 of the what Marvel calls their young guns, and so it's R.B. Silva and Pepe Larraz were the 2 artists that were doing it, and it is absolutely gorgeous art.
Oh, so pretty.
Typical of the layouts, the 4-panel down.
This particular page I happen to open to is where they're explaining the plants. And so they're telling you 6 months ago this happened, 5 months ago this happened, 4 months ago this happened. So each one is supposed to make you stop and think, okay, 5, okay. And, time periods.
They use panel layouts really well because there's a lot of time jumping in this story.
Yeah.
Well, they use it
going through
because they use it really well because they read Understanding Comics.
Here's the first appearance of somebody said who was their favorite character.
Magneto, yes.
It's very nice.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. It's truly beautiful. So anyway, what I had started to say there was, I haven't read the whole thing, which is why you get that wide-eyed look of quizzicalness on my face when he talks about something that happens toward the end, because I haven't read it yet. I did, as a responsible guest on the show, I did read up on synopsises and stuff like that so that I would at least have a clue what was going on, but I haven't actually read it yet and seen the pages.
Yeah.
So
Michael Mistogursky is a licensed counselor right now.
Licensed clinical therapist, yeah.
But Marita Beth and I met him when he owned 7 comic book stores up in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania.
Steve's Comic Relief.
Yep. So we've known him since the, I guess, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's what we figured out last time.
Yep.
So.
Hi, Whiskey.
And that is Tank and Whiskey.
Oh, it's not the hounds of hell coming after us?
No, it's. I've got a pit bull named Tank.
Okay.
I've got 2 twin beagles named Whiskey and Scotch, and another beagle named Bear. So I have a I have a menagerie here of dogs.
Michael, I can tell why we're all crazy, but you're going to have to hire me at $100 an hour.
Can't afford you. Can't afford you. At least not until this pandemic is over and everything gets back to working.
It's all teletherapy right now.
I was going to say everything's teletherapy right now. Yeah.
I don't know how to say no. I'm way overbooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that out of you.
Yeah. No cats. Jim Barry. Oh, okay. About them having dogs. Got
When you have 4 dogs, no cats is probably the way to go. Plus, I'm actually allergic to cats, so I've always been more of a dog person. Lauren loves our Barracuda. Lauren has personal experience with all of our dogs. So Lauren was Morgan's best man, or whatever you call it. You were my best man. So what do you call?
I was your best man.
I know, but what do you call a
the other.
bridesmaid? Okay, right?
Yeah, I suppose. Probably I mean, maid of honor is the.
Maid of honor. Yes, that's what it is. I did not have a traditional wedding. I don't know these. Marita Beth was my best man at my wedding. So,
Michael, there's no substitute for therapy. It's good, but still, it comes out eventually. Don't stuff it down. That's like the volcanoes on Krakauer or something. Stuff it down.
Yeah, one of the fun things that we're discovering right now, in the current storyline, is that Krakoa actually had a mate.
Oh.
And they have gotten back together. It was another island. And they've gotten back together, and they've melded together and created a bigger island. But that island is a lot more wild. We don't know a whole lot about it yet, but that island is a lot more wild.
That reminds me of Lava. You guys know Lava?
Lava?
A little Disney short called Lava.
No.
Oh my God! Look it up. Look it up. That's your assignment for this week for me. It is like a 5-minute, 8-minute little short, like they sometimes put before.
Yeah. Was it a Pixar or?
I actually don't know the answer to that question.
Hey, Matthew. What are you, Groucho Marx?
I Lava You is what I always call it, but I looked it up the other day, and it's actually, I think its title is actually just Lava, but it is a beautiful. It's a song. It's an animated song. You have to watch it. Anyway, islands. So I read something. I don't know where now because I did a lot of reading just in the last 24 hours to get ready for this. But I read something about how the island Krakoa is not everything that everybody. It's not the paradise they thought it was. Does that happen after these books end? Is that like an ongoing problem?
Well, it's still, and just to give a little background on Krakoa was actually in Giant Size X-Men #1.
Giant Size X-Men #1, 1975 or something like that.
So that was the island that kidnapped and held because. So Krakoa is kind of like a vampire island. It needs mutant essence. It lives off of mutant essence. It feeds off of mutant essence. So that's part of the trade-off that they came up with Krakoa, is that they've discovered that if people rotate and give 10%, and then the next group comes in and gives 10%, and the next group, nobody gets killed by the island by eating all of their essence.
So it's like giving blood, or like 10% of their population gets sacrificed?
No. 10% of their mutant essence, whatever the island is feeding on. Okay. It's not blood, but think of it as blood. So they are feeding the island and keeping the island happy.
But I saw something where it is blood. I saw a page of something, and again, it might not be in these books because it was in the research I was doing, but it's this beautiful page that talks about how even blood, from blood comes new life, or something like that. And plants eat blood. These plants eat blood. They're like Seymour. Seymour. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm looking, like I said, I'm excited about reading the rest of the book now. That I've done all this research and I love the art and it's so it's good.
And the cool thing is because so after these 12 issues came out, so there were 6 issues in each story. So there were 6 issues of House of X, 6 issues of Power of X, and they alternated, of course. And then it went into 6 different titles, 7 different titles. So you have the things that Jonathan Hickman does is just absolutely, the way his brain works is amazing. So the stories, you have the regular X-Men book. Okay, that was the first one that came out. And then the story went from there into the Marauders book, which was Kitty Pryde's book. And then it went into Excalibur, which dealt with Captain Britain and the Elseworlds, the other world, which is part of the whole Captain Britain mythos. And then it went into New Mutants. And the reason it's so easy for me to remember those first 4 titles is they spell out X-Men. X-Men,
oh my goodness.
Marauders, Excalibur, New Mutants.
Did you do that on purpose?
Yes. That's what I said. The things that they did.
Hey, mnemonics.
The things that they did in this story. And of course, Jonathan Hickman has put together a whole alphabet. And during the time that the story was coming out, we broke the code of the alphabet. And then later on, they came out with a decoder card.
Is that, you're talking about the language that the mutants all get telepathically taught when they come to the island?
Well, no, I'm talking about the alphabet. You know, those symbols all over the place? Yeah, that.
That's the language, right?
The written language.
Yeah.
So, we're not quite to the blood yet. So if you remember Doug Ramsey from the New Mutants, he was called Cypher, and he could talk to anything. And so he's the one
you meet him really early in this.
Yeah, because he's the one that actually talked to Krakoa, and he was the one that brokered all of this with Professor X, Magneto, and Krakoa.
Okay. And he's like the only one that can actually talk to the island.
The one that can talk to the island, yes. Yeah. And so the island and he came up with this language, which is the alphabet and everything else. So it was really fun reading the books and trying to decode because they would give you a couple of sentences at the end of each book to tell you what was going to happen in the next book.
Oh, wow.
So that was part of the point of decoding it, was because we kind of knew who the character was coming in the next book. So we could kind of put together the letters that we thought it was. So it was just such an amazing backstory, and such complete world building out of this, that it was just amazing.
Well, some of the best stories in literature are the ones where there's enough of a world building that there's a language. If you think about think about Star Trek and it's the fact that it's got extra languages built into it. And what?
Quest.
Tolkien. Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to say. The
next thing I said was ElfQuest.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Look, I'm wondering, and Ron, you may be the one who would know this more, or maybe some of the people online. So Len Wein and Dave Cockrum built Krakoa into the first X-Men that was new after the Neil Adams, Roy Thomas run ended. And then there was a point where Krakoa came back. And I don't remember where that is, but that was under under Claremont and maybe Cockrum also. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was in, I want to say it was in the early 1 110s maybe.
Okay. So Cochrane was still there. Okay.
And so until this story, Krakoa has always just been like in the background. Like every now and then it would pop up.
Right, just like any other bad guy mutant.
And it was considered kind of a bad guy mutant, right? Because it was feeding on their energy and trapped people and did things that people.
But Taggart there at some point. Didn't Maria Taggart set up on Krakoa at some point?
Yes.
Well.
Yeah, Moria McTaggart was. I'm trying to figure out which issue numbers that was. It doesn't list them.
I seem to remember it in the Byrne run, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, that's and it's been, you know, and they've retroconned it to be or retconned it.
What does that word mean?
Where they write a story that makes it so that it was part of the past. So what they've done is they Krakoa was created by an atomic blast during World War II, and they wrote a story where Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos actually visited it.
So it's the comic book version of gaslighting. They're changing the history.
Yeah, I think I'm using that term to do it, but
they're pretending this was always true. Now we're telling you this
is continuity.
What? What?
It's retroactive continuity, is what it is. Retcon.
It means Dumbledore is gay. Come on, Lauren.
So
I saw that term when I was doing my research, and I really didn't understand the term.
Yeah, yeah. So it's when they find an opportunity to, you know, because one of the things that to me, the Marvel universe, and why it not succeeded more, but why it was more exciting to so many more people than the DC universe was it was so included. Yeah. You know, it was together. And so anytime that current writers can find a way to look at a past story and say, well, this was really part of that back then, you know, and it makes sense like this one did, it's fun for me because it gives it more of a sense of continuity, you know, that they didn't just find this island, you know, and it's been there all along. And James is right. Donny Cates right now is the retcon king.
And thank you, Nara, for the reminder. I had forgotten that about Torchwood. You're right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay.
You know, and it seems like retcon is similar to or offshoot of integration, where the Marvel Universe became integrated from the beginning with all the various characters inhabiting the same world. But as you go on through, 60, 70 decades now, or 6 or 7 decades, you need to be able to take that integration into a whole nother realm. And that seems to me what you're talking about is retcon.
Yeah, they're explaining why we've never heard of those characters before, but they've always been there, you know, and so it's just been to me, I like it because it makes it feel more like it's still part of the Marvel universe. They didn't just make it up, you know.
Okay.
I forget how we got on that.
I think you did.
The history of itself, 1975, it was introduced, and then Steve said it was brought back in the 80s.
Yeah. So, and Moria McTaggart was captured there at one point, but she wasn't drained. They drained Vulcan, but they didn't drain her. I'm now remembering that storyline. I'm going to have to go back and read it, but I remember Vulcan being there, and with Moria. caught in the volcano. It's been so long. I just remember that panel.
Well, I seem to also remember a storyline where they were getting involved in the UN or some other international organization, and they were fighting for their rights to be a part of it.
Yeah, that was, and they've done the storyline before. There was another island that the mutants had taken over, that was not a living island. It was just, they had an island called Genosha, and all mutants were welcome there.
I may be confusing the two.
Yeah, and
confusing Genosha and Krakoa.
And Genosha is a couple of military and countries got together and completely wiped out the island and killed off 2.8. When you're reading House of X, when you're reading House of X and Power of X, they go through and they tell you how many mutants are alive at a certain time, and then you'll see a big number. Huh?
There are pages of like white pages with just words, statistics, and stuff on them. Very
yeah, and don't pass those up because those are very important.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you what happened for to go from like 2.6 million mutants down to 100,000.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, Matthew, because now when you add Muir Island into it, my head's twirling about and I need another drink. But I finished the bottle up here.
That's true. Muir Island was where Moria McTaggart was.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. Thank you, Matthew.
Muir Island was where Moria McTaggart and Hank McCoy always did their genetics research together.
Yes.
So, like, there are pages like this.
Yes.
In the middle of the book. That it's like, you're just giving you facts and statistics and dates and stuff.
And the other thing is every color matters.
Yeah.
You'll start seeing some patterns. That's how we figured out what lifeline we were on.
Oh, cool. Okay.
The color bar that goes across there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all know who Steve Kornacki is. But Marita Beth is reminding me a lot of Steve Kornacki at the big board now. The MSNBC guy who shows the graphs and the charts. And
you're welcome.
I tried to grab some of these. I could not find a legal site to grab any of this. I think I'm going to break down, and the next show that we do.
Michael is asking about the book that I have in front of me. I'm sorry about the glare, but this is the hardcover collection that my beloved Ron provided me with to prep for tonight.
But there are illegal sites where I can just go download the whole book, and I would be able to put PDFs up and things like that. And I've fought doing it all along, but
Sure.
There are certain pages I wanted to show, and it's kind of like next time I'm just going to do
hard. Yeah.
It's not like I haven't bought several hundred copies of that book.
Right. There ought to be some sort of you're not doing anything illegal because.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael, you're now my favorite person. You've posted 5 posts in a row.
So Michael says, I identify better with characters in Marvel, especially mutants. Maybe it's because I sometimes feel like a mutant myself.
Well, one of the things, and he said his previous comment was about how the Marvel Universe integrates real places and storylines seem more real. And that's one of the things way back when I was new to comics and trying to learn, I didn't know anything but Archie and Disney and trying to jump into the Marvel.
And Betty Page.
She was new to me then too. But trying to jump into all of this.
You discovered Betty Page through Rocketeer.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Exactly right. But I
listed. Yeah.
In discovering comics, the more mainstream Marvel DC stuff, one of the things that I learned / realized is that exact thing, is that, and in fact, it's part of their origin. When you do a bunch of research on where Marvel came from versus where DC came from in the history of the comic book companies, Marvel was born from a desire to make the stories more accessible to the average reader. Instead of being about a millionaire in a mansion with, millions of dollars worth of equipment in his basement, it was about a kid who had school problems and girlfriend problems and just happened to get bit by a radioactive spider. I mean, it was supposed to be more accessible to people so that they could relate better. And it was, for most people, it was, the storylines were more real and the cityscapes were more real, and it was just accessible is the word I keep using, but yeah. Anyway, yes.
Well, and for a lot of us who like DC, the very
Don't get me wrong.
7-page, 8-page stories, a lot of content, but they never went anywhere. And Marvel went places.
Yeah.
It grew up with us.
They were less afraid of conflict. They were less afraid of, like with DC, at least in the early days, the good guy was always going to win.
Yes.
Always at the end of every book, always, always, always. And Marvel was less held to that constraint. They were more willing to let a character die, or let a fight end with the good guy in the hospital bed. They were just more willing to go outside the norm.
Yeah. And Michael, that was
yes, exactly.
Michael, that was David Michelini, John Romita Jr., and Bob Layton, who brought that stuff to us. And yet it was very novel for the time. And I think a very important part.
Interesting, Nara.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
He did a good job of separating. I mean, they did the storylines of other, so and of immigration, because Superman is basically a story of immigration,
Yeah.
So they did do some of that, but it was still, you could read that he was an immigrant, he was trying to integrate into society, but you never felt like you could be him.
Right.
Batman was a little bit more, you could possibly be him if you had $1 billion, but you were never going to have $1 billion.
Right.
But Spider-Man, Peter Parker was just a kid in high school, and he got bit by a spider. I'm a kid in high school. I get bit by spiders.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think that DC did enough in explaining that the connection between Superman and Batman had to do with they were both orphans, and as such stranded in a world that they had to grow up in that was foreign because their parents weren't there. And that, I think, would be a wonderful story arc to explore them more.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they don't get together at the end realizing that both of their moms were named Martha.
She was actually a time traveler.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think that he is doing the story of how do the oppressed act when they become the oppressors. I think this is the story that he is telling. I'm not sure, but I think that it is going to be a morality play of what happens when you have a race that has been oppressed forever, and then all of a sudden they have power. How do they not become the people that oppressed them?
It's interesting. I have the book that you're talking about.
This is a wonderful book. I love this book.
Yeah.
I love this book.
Yeah, for anybody that doesn't have that book, you should read it. And Michael Chabon does a lot. He's doing a lot more with comics right now. So, which is actually great because he's done comics in mainstream and brought them. People read his books and don't realize they're reading comics.
I just saw his name on some movie too.
Oh yeah, he's big. He had a lot to do with not a movie, but with Picard.
Maybe that's what it was. That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. Because I can remember Kyle and I at the end of that, we were like, oh, the writing is just so amazing. And then his name came on the screen and I was like, well, there you have it. Yeah.
And I haven't watched Picard yet either.
You're adorable. His only problem is a rock.
Well, and magic.
And what?
Magic. He's acceptable to kryptonite and magic. Those are his only two weaknesses.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Well, kryptonite, magic, and the red sun.
Yeah.
Not in the yellow sun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that, I just can't wait for this story to go.
So this book, this beautiful hardcover book that you gave me, Ron, to read for this, you can't have it back till I'm done with it, even though we've already done this show. Can you tell me now, is there more after this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this whole story continues, and
that was the other thing that I was going to, when I started talking about how it went into other series and how it spelled out X-Men. That's how I remember what order.
Right. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So afterwards they have a run. They have two different ways that they're reproducing the books and the graphic novels. They have a graphic novel series called Dawn of X, which reproduces the stories in order from each series. So it's, instead of just reprinting all the X-Men titles, it's reprinting the X-Men book, and then the Marauders book, and then the Excalibur book, and then the New Mutants book, and then the X-Force book, and then I can't remember the other one. So you can keep on reading in the order that it's supposed to. And then they come back and if you only want to read the X-Men story, you can get just the X-Men. Or if you only want to read the Marauders, you can get just the Marauders in their own book.
So it's Dawn of X, House of X.
Yeah, House of X and Power of X were the two that started. Those were both 6 issues long.
And those are the ones that are collected in this hardcover that he gave me.
Right. And then afterwards, it'll be Dawn of X Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. Gotcha. And we're up to like issue 12 or 13 on each of them right now. The X-Force series, no, what was it? Fallen Angels. That was the other one. The Fallen Angels series is over now. It was just a 6-issue limited series.
Was that like the 3rd time they've done Fallen Angels?
Yep. And that's the other fun part about what Jonathan Hickman is doing, is he's throwing all these names out here that us longtime readers will recognize, like Marauders, that we go in with a certain preconceived notion, and then all of a sudden, the actual Marauders from the original X-Men series actually live in Utah on in a retirement village in Utah, and they just play golf. They are stationed. They can come back to the island whenever they want, but they're happy there, and they like to play golf. So.
Whatever floats your boat.
You've mentioned a number of times that Charles and Magneto are still are again a team. Okay, and that's always been an interesting relationship as they've done the continuity implants or the retcons, because originally he hated all of humanity. We don't learn until maybe 100 issues later. It's because he was in the concentration camps. What brings them together now?
Moria McTaggart brought them both together and then had Xavier read her mind and project it into Magneto so that they could see all of the different lives that she's lived up to this point.
Okay.
So, there have been times in the past where Magneto, when Professor X had died or disappeared during one time, he took over the school and was trying to teach the mutants, one of the things that I love about Magneto is he's not really a bad guy.
Right.
He is just wanting to protect his people.
Yeah, he's selfish as fuck, but he's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
Initially, he was just creating a family of misfits.
Right.
Yeah.
They use the word family to describe what's going on Krakoa, which I liked that. That was
Okay.
I want to just make sure, because I never know how quickly people that are commenting are coming and going. So I just don't want to ignore anybody. But I wanted to say, and apparently he's not alone. People, Michael and I guess Lauren as well identify with. Well, we're all reading the comment now. You've pulled it up.
Yeah.
And just so y'all know, I post comments because we're on so many. We do 5 different live.
I love it.
So other people, if they're not on the same page, that
They might not see that.
they can't read the comments.
Right.
So.
No, that's brilliant. I love that you can do that.
And I want
to thank people for being candid and open about this kind of discussion, because good Lord, we need more of that in our world, more open discussion about mental health. And on that subject, I want to make sure that they all know, because one of these people didn't read this book yet, right? Is it Michael or is it Matthew? Somebody hadn't read.
Matthew has, James has, Lauren and Morgan have.
So that the plant, the Krakoa plant thing, that right, the first plant, and Steve doesn't know this maybe yet. The first plant adds 5 years to any life.
Oh, I'm going there.
The plant gives, they make a pill out of the extract from the plant, and this pill adds 5 years to life. The second plant basically has antibodies to eradicate all illness, all disease, I should say. And the third disease, and the third plant has the power to eradicate all diseases of the mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So
bring me to Michael.
The concept of those 3 things all actually existing is so amazingly liberating to me.
Yes.
Like, just the very concept of no physical disease, life can be extended, no mental disease, no mental illness. That's amazing.
And that brings in
amazing.
You wonder, governments are afraid to be able to have these available to just anybody in their country, because then they lose the power structure that has built up for such a long time.
Well,
insurance companies and
that
right.
type of thing.
Now, Marvel isn't necessarily dealing with it. I don't feel like this story really deals with, or maybe it does, and I'm not there yet.
It keeps on going.
The finances of that, did that become part of it too?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because you know that I consider big pharmaceutical to be like the biggest evil that ever.
Yeah,
face
humanity. Going back to the X-Men number 4, where X-Men actually show up to the Economic Forum. They show up to the World Economic Forum. So they deal with the finances.
There is a need for some medication, but in most cases, medication ought to be only used long enough to obtain the skills and the self-awareness to titrate off of it. Michael, if you'd like to email me separately at some point, I'm kind of curious about hearing more. From my point of view, almost all depression and anxiety, and therefore grief and trauma, come from unhealed wounds. And if you can heal the wounds of early childhood through whatever major wounds of adulthood, then suddenly bipolar doesn't exist. I've met very, very few really, truly medical bipolar 1 types. I don't deny that you have it. I've never met you. I don't know.
It's very
I'm not therapizing, but boy, I'd love to talk about it and see when you were diagnosed and what occurred in your life prior to that. And I would be glad to do that in email or by phone or text, just you and me, and no charge.
So, thanks, Steve. Maria, have you seen the Joker movie?
I have.
Okay.
And it speaks to a lot of what Michael just spoke to.
Right.
This guy who was horrendously traumatized through his life, abandoned, somewhat similar to how Batman, Bruce Wayne, was abandoned. And his journey took him in a direction where people, instead of being empathetic and nurturing and helpful to him, were horrible and criticizing. And even the person he admired the most turned on him in front of national television and pointed fun at him instead of treating him as an equal. Man, I'd snap that way.
I have been deathly afraid to see that movie.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I have. You know, I suffer of depression of my own.
Yeah.
And several other things, and everything that I saw in that movie was like, I would just go into a tailspin. I would not. I just have been. I've not seen it, and I've just been afraid to see it.
Yeah, and you know, part of it is, as Michael says, in real life, mental health is mocked in society. Well, that's why I have an office. You don't get mocked in my office ever.
Right.
Affirmation and validation, even if I don't agree, is necessary for healing.
Well, and that's why I thanked him for being candid about sharing that with us, because
I agree.
It is so important that we acknowledge this is real and that this is okay. You know, it's okay to know that you're dealing with these things and work on them. You know, it's otherwise, if you don't acknowledge, you can't fix, you know, and you can't grow. You can't.
To have a Ron in your life or a Marita Beth to put their arm around you if necessary or if needed.
Not everybody does.
My friend Jim said he recommends seeing it is a person that I think it's okay to say I've put my arm around many times, and him around me a couple.
I will take that advice, and I will, in the safety of my home rather than in a movie theater, I will be willing to watch it. Now, I at the time I was like, no, I have enough issues with the whole relationship between Harley and Joker thing anyway, where I'm like, I've seen one too many 8-year-olds in Harley Quinn costumes. I mean, like, really,
Yeah.
Just want to scream. And
again, I'd like to point out that Michael is right.
Absolutely.
Mental illness doesn't define a person.
Absolutely.
It's something you learn to live with and to manage.
Well, and the thing that I'm always reminding people, and the reason that, you know, we want to encourage them to seek whatever assistance or help or guidance with it, is you wouldn't ignore it if it was your heart, you know, or if you break a leg, you don't just limp around and hope it gets better on its own. No, you go to somebody who's going to fix it for you, you know. And mental illness should not be treated any different than physical illness. it's amazing how it gets ignored and shuffled under the rug and, poo-pooed.
Marita Beth, when you watch the Joker movie, for extra security, is Kyle going to dress up as Catwoman? I think I lost you.
I don't even know where that came from or where to go with that.
Selena Kyle.
Kyle.
It's not going to happen.
Well, all we've got is coffee left, so l'chaim.
I don't know. It doesn't count you drinking coffee. You get a demerit for running out of liquor.
I've got a lot downstairs, but I don't want to leave.
And I don't see Ronnie drinking either. I'm the only one drinking.
No.
I never see you drink.
It's empty, I promise.
Yeah. I'm half a bottle now.
All right.
And I had about 4 fingers.
You had 4 fingers when you started?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it was up to about here. Right? 3 fingers.
So, going back a little bit, let's see.
Keep in mind, baby, that it's going on. We love everybody sticking with us. This is so awesome, but I don't want to like ruin that by going too long. So
yeah, I can't go.
We are going to cut off. But Matthew Martinez made a note going back to what Marita Beth said.
Right.
The Marauders have, and Sebastian Shaw, who was the Black King in the Hellfire Club, he handles all of the illegal drug trade from the island. So when countries want to buy the drug illegally and not recognize Krakoa, there is a possibility for that because Krakoa needs money. The mutants need money because they've realized that you buy politicians with money. And so part of their power base is building up all of this money. So, yeah. There was a great...
with Marvel mimicking the real world.
Yes.
Uh-oh, Morgan got me some liquor for Father's Day.
Hey, Morgan, what'd you get him? I just canceled 2 bottles of Minor Case.
Don't spoil the surprise.
Through the internet because the local store opened again, and it's got Minor Case. It's very hard online to get through to somebody who's trying to sell you something. We don't use the phone. You mean you don't use the phone?
I think it's important for me to bring attention right now to the fact that while Father's Day is the 3rd Sunday in June or whatever the heck it is,
right.
Crazy Aunt Day is the 4th Sunday in June. So if you need my address, Morgan, please let me know.
Rita Beth, if you email my daughters and say this is your children's Crazy Aunt Day, I'm sure they'll take care of you.
Okay.
Actually, one of my customers found me a bottle of Blanton's this week. So I'm very happy.
Nice.
So
nice.
I now have another bottle in reserve so I can open the bottle that I have.
I found a place with extra Henry McKenna. So I'm trying to keep a extra bottle of that. And also somebody turned me on to Eagle Rare.
Oh, Eagle Rare is awesome.
It's very nice.
Morgan's comments now are making me laugh.
Where's her next one?
What I was going to say was, I think that telling somebody you've got them a year thing is nothing more than a challenge, my love.
Especially to me. Especially to me.
And Morgan, is it a year's supply if he keeps doing shows like this?
It's a year's supply because they're only going to ship it once a month.
Okay. That's smart.
It's metered out for you so you don't kill yourself with it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, when we are allowed together, we are going to do a Scotch whiskey and comics tasting at the store.
Nice.
When is this?
When we can have a crowd again.
Oh, right, an actual crowd. You know that I'm stuck in Texas for the summer, right?
I know.
I read that.
My summer event that I usually do in the north is canceled because
Yeah.
of the pandemic. So I am trying to figure out how to endure summer in Texas for the first time in 25 years.
Well, if you want to come out for a week or two and be a crazy aunt in Pennsylvania, we'll accommodate you.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to save that invitation for after Broadway is open, and we are going to go see that show.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, that would be
I'll start looking into tickets.
so awesome.
Yes.
For James, James, are you still on here? I know that you've read all of the House of X, Power of X, and all of the books after that. What would you like to add to this?
To help wrap things up.
To help wrap things up, yeah.
Almost 2 hours.
Well, last time we went 3.5.
Well, yes, but last time there was also nobody left but the 3 or 4 of us at the end.
And I had the extra part of the Thomas McKenna up here.
Yeah. we didn't run out of alcohol last time.
No.
I'm not out of alcohol. That is not the problem. I just don't want to run people off by going too.
We're still at 13 people. So
I watched a thing like this, a conversation with people, and there were 3 people on the thing the other day, and it was Black Lives Matter related, and it was 2 hours long. And I remember thinking to myself, this is a very long time. I am loving everything they have to say, and I have a lot I can learn, and I want to be the best co-conspirator I can be.
Yeah.
2 hours is a long time.
It is.
And I can remember thinking to myself then, we should probably make sure that we don't go more than 2 hours. I don't want to scare people from like, oh, I'm not going to join that thing. They never quit.
Barry is asking for one of you to put him up later in the summer.
I've got 4 extra bedrooms in the house.
I wish I could say I do, but I don't. I promise that I'll get together with you guys as we go out to dinner or drinks or breakfast or something, but I don't have space.
Yeah, we still have. I mean, you'll have to deal. It's still Morgan's room and Taylor's room and front bedroom and middle bedroom. But yeah,
he hasn't let me come redecorate yet, but we'll get there.
You would be surprised. Tracy went all Martha Stewart on one of the rooms.
Really?
Yeah, she did a she did a wonderful job decorating.
Nice.
I bought little knickknacks for it and everything. It was like, where did that come from?
Yes, Jim, the Dallas Arlington area.
Yeah. Ron's in Fort Worth, and I'm in Arlington, and Dallas is the bigger city to the east of both of those.
Dallas is where you don't want to go.
You don't want to go there.
Yeah.
Unless you put up by DC Comics and they take you to a good restaurant.
Well, we'll take him to. We've got good
there
restaurants.
Are good restaurants in Fort Worth and Arlington.
No, I did not tell them that. It's one of your hidden dark secrets, Jim.
So James wants to know what we think about all of the people that get angry over the current X books directions.
And then we'll answer the other one. I don't know. This is all you, Ron. You're the one who hears these people.
Yeah. Most of the anger coming from it is from people that, yeah.
Are they politicized?
Yeah, that they're the ones that, for some reason, ignore the fact that the X-Men have always
been.
Absolutely.
Always been.
And you have this subset of of people, the comics gators, that just are so upset anytime there is something political in comics.
I call them ostriches. They're people who want to hide their heads in the sand that there's anything going on that they need to understand and know about.
Yeah.
They just want to retreat and escape into their comic books and have it not be about real shit. And I'm telling you, comic books have always been about real shit, especially at Marvel. And if we're not addressing the real shit, then we're not doing what we're supposed to do.
And
we're not reflecting society.
The whole point of art is to make you think.
Exactly.
It is not to comfort you. It is not to pacify you. It is to make you think. And I do believe that comics are art. And if comics aren't making you think, they're not doing their job.
Doing their job, exactly. And anybody that was with us last month, the two shows we did last month were also about books that really made you think. I mean, we talked about Mouse, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
These are books that they're about nothing but the political, socio-economic state of the world. That's what it's about. And translating that into something that's enjoyable to look at and captivates you is what comics is all about. If it's all pure escapism, what's the point of that? You can watch Saturday morning cartoons and get that.
Yeah.
Except that they've taken away the guns from the Looney Tune characters. If you look back to the 40s, you had Captain America, Submariner, and Superman, and I think Wonder Woman fighting against Hitler. If you look into the 50s, you had A Monkey on My Back in EC Comics, and drugs, and Taint the Meat 'Tis the Humanity, where a butcher is selling horse meat, and it's strictly so that he could survive.
Yep.
Comics have always been cultural and politicized, unless you want to turn a blind eye to it.
Exactly.
He has a black character. Archie has a lesbian or a gay character. I don't know if they have a transsexual now, but if Dan Parent has anything to say about it, they probably will. So if art is not a reflection of where society is or is about to go, there's no purpose in art.
Amen. Yep.
Jim says preach.
Right? Yeah. So tell me, guys, I think I don't know that I should say we've settled in, but it seems like a really great idea if we do a couple of weeks and then we take a couple of weeks off. So Ron and I had talked about last month we did the second and third Thursday.
Okay.
And this is the second Thursday. So if we try to keep with that and see if this structure works, then we would be on again next Thursday night. And
we have clients, so I can do that.
You're
yes.
available, and I think you might have Jeff as well, Ron. If I don't know.
Yeah, Jeff.
Put him off a week.
Yeah, Jeff. Yeah, he.
We should decide what to read.
Been able to do this discussion. Yeah.
We should decide what to read so that people that love you enough to follow us are in the loop.
Next time, it will not be as much of a read as a history, because what Jeff is wanting to do is talk about Milestone Comics.
Oh.
And so there's not really anything in print right now, Milestone, although I can suggest some books with the creators that were part of Milestone. But I think we need to discuss we were all around when Milestone came out.
Absolutely.
We know why it started, we know why it ended, and what DC did to them, and and why they did it. So I think that would be a very interesting discussion. So next week will be more of a history lesson about Milestone.
But if you
tell me
read in Milestone Comics, you'll have a leg up on the conversation.
Yeah.
Sure. And
Excellent.
are you telling me that Black Lives Matter?
Black lives do matter so much.
Yes. And it doesn't take away from any other color.
No, it is not.
My husband right now is dealing with a friend who doesn't quite get it. And I armed him last night with the whole house on fire analogy or, allegory. The house is on fire. My house isn't on fire. I'm fine, but that house is on fire. Put the fire out.
Yeah.
I understand that all the houses aren't on fire. It's okay. Yes, we love all houses.
And don't water my house
down. All houses. But let's put the fire out on that one, shall we?
I've had a number of conversations with people who tell me that I'm not allowed to use All Lives Matter. And to me, the point is that I am allowed to use it because that's been my stance for 50 years.
It's not an untrue
story. However, it's not about me. It's about a matter the way Black people are accepting it. So I'm going to go back and forth until you understand my point of view. But when it comes to it, if I go out to a rally, I'm going to have a Black Lives Matter sign. I'm not going to have an All Lives Matter, even though that's my essence.
Exactly. Here's the thing is the moment Black lives really matter, then we can all carry All Lives Matter signs.
Yeah.
The moment it's true, the moment Black mothers and fathers don't have to teach their children to act differently than I would have to teach my children to act in public. The moment their lives really matter just as much, then and only then does anybody have the right to say all lives matter. Right now, it's about making sure those lives actually do matter. And I will start to cry if we go too much longer. So
I'll just add. That's why it's so important to vote whatever your belief system is this November. Let's make sure that there are enough people voting that makes sense.
Yep.
Not that a person like Mr. Trump can play to his reality show and white supremacist base and say, I'm going to govern to that base, and 2/3 of the country is left out.
Yeah. We have to, the thing I keep reminding people about November is it's not about loving the name you're voting for.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to think that he's the best thing since sliced bread, right? Nope. Joe Biden is old and doesn't get it right about half the time. But it's not about him. It's about who he's going to appoint to the Supreme Court and who he's going to put on that cabinet. It is absolutely not as much about him as it is about who.
There is a ton of qualified talent to put on his cabinet.
Sorry, we shouldn't probably have done this. We love you. We love you all. Oh my gosh.
Hey, Ron, are you going to get a bunch of people coming to the store protesting now?
Possibly.
I have people. I don't know how much you read of my personal feed, but I am pretty outspoken. I had a policeman come in this week and tell me, or last week, and tell me that I needed to cool it because, they could be slow to come and help me if I ever needed, because I would need to call the police or something. And that's when I went from posting 2 or 3 times a day to posting 20 times a day.
I love you so hard right this minute. I love you more than I've ever loved you before, and that's a hard thing right there.
I have people, every time we set up at Gay Pride, I have people that quit coming to our store. I have, and it's one of those things that I am outspoken as a person, and I run my business as an inclusive environment as possible. I have many customers that I don't agree with, on a lot of things, but the store should be a safe haven for all.
Everybody.
Correct.
Yeah, with the exception of those that have absolutely. I mean, I do have to say that if you are coming in and you are hateful to others, we're not inclusive to you.
Correct.
I hope you have the name of that police officer and you could report him if you needed to.
It is a friend.
I don't care.
Who really thought he was doing a good thing.
Oh.
Being kind to you.
Yeah, he was trying to be kind. And I knew what he was trying to do, and he wasn't being threatening on himself. But it also gave me an insight as to how he felt about the rest of the force. That they would do something like that.
Yeah.
So this is a whole nother political conversation we probably shouldn't have, but the subject Minneapolis is facing right now is how do you the whole one bad apple thing, like,
right.
Okay, but how, if all the other apples are good, then why do they allow there to be one bad apple?
There was another analogy that I read somewhere this week that was like, if you have so many bad apples on a tree, maybe the tree is diseased.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Chop, chop, chop. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, we need to wrap it up before we piss off more people.
I want to apologize to, is it Matthew again? The little comments go too fast. Jim, who is an Aquaman fan. I want you to know I am also an Aquaman fan, and Aquaman is always underrated. It's not
okay.
fair.
I have to ask this: were you an Aquaman fan before Jason Momoa?
You know very well I was.
I know.
Aquaman fan back in the 90s. I was an Aquaman fan, and I have the collection of books.
And are you an Aquaman fan? Are you an Aquaman fan after the Conan movie?
What?
Wasn't the movie Jason Momoa in Conan?
Yes, he was.
Arian meets the sea.
Yeah.
I think Marita Beth liked Aquaman when Peter David was writing it.
When Peter David was writing it.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that was some brilliant shit. And let me tell you right now, I love me some Jason Momoa. I think he's an amazing feast for the eyes.
Uh-huh.
But the movie is weird. So I am not all about that movie, but I am an Aquaman fan. I in fact wish they had done more with the movie.
Have you ever read the Steve Skates Jim Aparo run?
Ronnie, have I?
No.
I don't think so.
Oh, man.
In the 70s.
Then no. In the 70s, all I knew of anything superhero was Saturday morning cartoons, guys. I mean, really, in the 80s, in the 70s and 80s, I did not know comics until the late 80s.
If you have an opportunity to get it, it was wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah. They dealt with a lot of, which I think Aquaman is best for. Here we are going off on another thing. Real quick.
We're down to 3 probably, so it's okay.
Yeah, I think Aquaman is a wonderful character to deal with ecological stories.
Yes, and that's why I've always loved him.
Yeah, and they did that with the Jim Aparo Steve Skates run.
Oh, it's been reprinted.
Yep.
What has?
That run.
The stuff we were just talking about?
Yeah.
Oh.
I will loan you a copy.
Okay.
There you go. And then I wanted to bring this up real quick. For those that saw Brightburn. It was a very interesting movie. I had a hard time with it because it was completely and totally lifted from J. Michael Straczynski's run called Supreme, which dealt with Hyperion from the Squadron Supreme.
Mm-hmm.
And both The Boys and Brightburn owe a whole lot to that run.
And that's squarely in the realm of things I just don't watch. It's just a no for me. It's too much. It's too much vile. It's too much evil. It's too much killing. It's too much blood. It's too much everything.
I don't like movies or books where redemption is not possible.
Right. Right. That's nice. Yeah. We could have a whole show about all the shows we could do. I was just thinking, there's a whole show in that. There's a whole show in this. There's a whole
Yeah.
We could go on. I always think it would be a fun conversation. Remember what is the Umbrella Society? What is that?
Umbrella Academy.
Umbrella Academy. And then what's the other one that's like that? That's
Doom Patrol.
That's not what I'm thinking of, but you're right. That could play into it too. There's another one though, another more modern one. Umbrella Academy and anyway, I will come up with that analogy and we'll.
Not the boys.
What?
Not the boys.
No.
No, the boys.
No,
although the boys has been very interesting. The boy, Runaways. Is it Runaways?
That's not ringing the bell. I thought it would ring when you came up with it.
Okay.
Sorry. Anyway.
Hulu.
What?
Runaways was on Hulu.
Yeah. Okay. No. Anyway, sorry. Should never have invited you into my crazy, chaotic menopausal brain. But I will work on that because there's another.
Get into my menopausal brain.
What?
You don't want to get into my menopausal brain.
It's a scary place over here. Oh, this has been wild and wonderful. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Ron, for continuing allowing me to be a part of this fun.
Yeah, so next week we need to we will clarify with Jeff.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to do Milestone if he's not doing it because that's his wheelhouse.
Right.
But what I would, if anybody wants to have a idea of Milestone, Robert Kirkman did a wonderful series.
Oh, that is so good. Sorry.
Of documentaries about the comics industry.
They're so good.
And one of them was about Milestone. And if you have a chance to watch that, it is fabulous.
Super well done. Well done. Yeah.
So I will see you all next week.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll try to get my daughters back and my son-in-law.
Good.
I hate to feel neglected.
They did not join us tonight, but thank you. And shout out to Morgan and your friend James and Matthew and all the people that were with us. It was fun. It was the interaction tonight was the best it's been. So that makes it so much more fun on this end. I mean, I have a great time. I could talk to Ronnie 24 hours a day. And Steve joining the party is like icing on my cake. But having the people comment is really what it's about. And
yes,
having that help drive the conversation is so much fun.
I very much enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
So if we don't do Milestone, I'll get with Jeff first thing in the morning. If we don't do Milestone next week, we'll brainstorm tomorrow and figure out what we will do. But I like the idea of several of the ones that we brought up earlier, especially right now. Here's another one. Remember the African famine books that came out?
I'm not sure.
DC.
In the 90s?
Yeah. So Marvel did a book called Heroes for Hope.
Yeah.
And then DC did a book called Heroes Against Hunger.
Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't until this year, because I was bagging them as back issues, and I started wondering, what company was for something and what company was against something, and just
that's
the way
true.
that they chose the names.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, they're just food for thought.
Interesting.
Because those were books that were produced completely and totally on, the company's dime, and all proceeds went to help the famine in Africa.
Yeah.
And and that's another thing, just how much comics support causes. Jim Lee did a page of art a day for 60 days to raise money for the comic stores that had trouble during the COVID thing.
Yes.
He raised $600,000.
Wow.
DC donated 200,000.
Yeah.
And that's the power of the artist over the company.
Yep.
And right now, there's a coalition of artists that are raising money for Black Lives Matter, and they're up over 300,000 right now.
Great.
Beautiful.
So yeah. But anyway, it was very nice talking to everybody. Everybody, thank you for sticking with us. We have 10 people with us right now, so thank you and everyone. Come back next Thursday if you still are a glutton for punishment.
Bring a friend or two.
And next time, if you are sharing a adult or even non-adult beverage, let's let the crowd tell us what they're drinking as well.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea.
So we will see you all next week. Thank you all for joining us. I love you each and every one.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
I love you.
Like that.
Mwah. Love you.